LC, redline monitor. Go ahead. Step 176, redline monitor and event table are in the correct configuration for terminal count.
At T-minus 4 minutes and holding, this is Atlas Launch Control. Joining me now is Vernon Thorpe, NASA Missions Program Manager with United Launch Alliance. Good morning, Vernon. Thank you for joining us. Well, ULA has a rich history for a variety of missions, and can you share some statistics about this mission?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I've got some trivia I can go over here. This will actually be the 63rd launch for ULA since ULA was formed in December of 2006. It'll be the 7th launch of the year, of calendar year 2012 for ULA. And this will be the 32nd launch of an Atlas V since Atlas V first started flying in August of 2002. In fact, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the EELV program. First flight of the Atlas and Delta vehicles about 10 years ago. Celebrating that this month. For those who like bigger numbers, this will actually be the 614th flight of an Atlas since Atlas first flew back in 1957. And this will be the 203rd flight of Centaur, 180th on Atlas, and we flew 23 of those on the Titan vehicle as well.
Well, can you tell us a little about the configuration of this vehicle that we'll be flying this morning?
Sure. We're using the Atlas V 401 configuration that uses our 4-meter payload fairing, 4-meter metallic payload fairing, and no solid rocket boosters. So you could think of this as kind of the most basic Atlas V configuration.
Okay, well, I believe we have a tape showing the flight profile, and if you can talk us through that, that would be great.
Sure, I'll do that. That'll give us a preview of what we hope to see later this morning. Okay, this is a previous Atlas launch that you actually see on the tape here, 401 configuration. This vehicle stands about 190 feet tall at liftoff. It'll lift off with 860,000 pounds of thrust from the RD-180 engine on that booster. And for this configuration, the first major event that you'll see will be about 4 minutes into flight. At that point, we will have used up the propellants in the booster stage. We'll shut down the RD-180 engine and jettison that first stage. So in the animation here, you see the engine shutting down. We fire the separation charges and fire the retro rockets to separate. And then we'll spend a few seconds conditioning the Centaur engine, and then we will light the Centaur engine for the first of 2 burns required for this mission. That first burn is going to last about 9 minutes and 15 seconds, and 8 seconds into that burn we'll jettison the payload fairing, as you see there. Now after this first burn is complete, we'll be in a low Earth parking orbit. That orbit this morning will last almost an hour. It's about a 56-minute coast. At the end of that, we'll light the Centaur engines for a second time. That'll be a shorter burn, about 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And then the spacecraft are essentially in the orbit that they need to be at that time. So we'll spend a few minutes reorienting the vehicle and preparing to separate that first spacecraft. We'll use our settling thrusters to adjust the orbit just slightly for that second spacecraft, and 12 minutes later we'll separate it as well. And then we'll go into our standard collision and contamination avoidance maneuver to make sure that the upper stage doesn't have any chance of contacting the spacecraft.
Okay, well, I know the Atlas V has been this selected vehicle for a variety of science missions. Can you give us a little history on the vehicle?
Sure. As I mentioned before, Atlas has been flying since 1957, and we've flown a lot of missions for NASA, of course, over the years. We also fly missions for the Air Force, for the National Reconnaissance Office, and for commercial customers. And we have several missions that we've flown for NASA in recent years. The Mars Science Lab, they got a lot of press recently associated with the successful landing on Mars. That was actually launched on an Atlas last November. I think it was 2 days after Thanksgiving. We flew that out of the Cape here. That was on one of our biggest configurations. That was on a 541. So between that and this, you sort of see the two extremes of what we currently have for atlases. This is the smaller version we're launching tonight, and last year for both the Juno and MSL missions, we launched the largest configuration that we're currently flying of Atlas.
Okay. Well, Vernon, thanks for stopping by this morning. Good luck to you and the team.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure.
At this time, the launch team is not working any issues with either the Atlas V vehicle or the spacecraft, and we are continuing to move toward an on-time launch at the beginning of a 20-minute window at 4:05 a.m. Eastern Time. At T-minus 4 minutes and holding, this is Atlas Launch Control. At T-minus 4 minutes and holding, this is Atlas Launch Control. Everything continues to flow smoothly for this morning's launch attempt of an Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41 on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station at 4:05 a.m. Eastern Time. To summarize the sequence of flight events, it will take approximately 1 hour and 31 minutes for the launch vehicle to complete the required burns and release the twin spacecraft. Ignition of the RD-180 engine will occur at about T-minus 2 seconds, followed by liftoff. First stage cutoff takes place 4 minutes and 3 seconds into the flight. The first and second stages separate, and second stage ignition will occur seconds later. Soon afterwards, The fairing cover protecting the spacecraft will be jettisoned about 4 minutes and 27 seconds into the flight. The Centaur second stage will continue to burn for about 9 minutes, then cut off for the first time. The vehicle will then coast for about 55 minutes before the second stage is restarted. The second stage will be restarted at T plus 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 25 seconds, and burn for about 5 minutes and then cut off for the second time. About 4 minutes later, the first of the twin spacecraft will separate from the launch vehicle, followed by separation of the second spacecraft about 13 minutes later. And the RBSP mission will be underway. At T-minus 4 minutes and holding, this is Atlas Launch Control.
OSM, LC.
OSM.
Verify the FCO, RCO, and OSM hold fire switches are in the proceed position.
Ready to proceed.
Perform launch on time verification.
Roger. Launch on time verified.
Roger. LC switch to ready position. RFFTS, LC. Go ahead. Status of step 1, 4.173.
These be status verified.
Roger.